Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Metamorphosis Podcast. Myself, Nusrat, gonna be hosting today's session. Even before starting, I would like to say today's session gonna be very unique, very special because in one of the previous podcasts we discussed ins and outs of getting into general surgery training, but this time we're gonna discuss the academic side of the general surgery, and we have two wonderful guests with us, our two lady surgeons, two boss ladies. I will introduce them shortly, and they themselves will introduce what they are doing, what they are up to. But even before diving into the main session, I would like to thank Mr. Atikur Rahman for arranging these sessions, and he's actually the mastermind behind these podcasts. I strongly believe these sessions is just not gonna help us to get idea or the tips to getting into the specialty training, but also to think out of the box, to broaden our knowledge, to get the and create the links. But anyway, let me introduce our today's guests. We have got Ms. Emiko Sultana and Ms. Afroza Sharmin. They are into the general surgery training on already, but the both of them are currently doing their PhD in the Imperial College London. I would leave their topic. I know their topic, but the research they are doing on. But I will let them to say what they are doing and what they are up to. So, flow to. I will start with Miss Emiko Sultana first. So, how are you today?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you, Nusrat, for that lovely introduction. And it's fantastic to be able to share this podcast with Afroza, who is one of my dear colleagues and very good friends. I'm a Bangladeshi graduate. I've moved to the UK in around 2019, and I got into general surgery training quite soon after. And I finished ST4 of training when I decided to go into academia. And I'm in year one of my PhD, similar to Afroza. My topic is inequalities in access for pelvic floor surgery because I'm a colorectal inclined trainee. And yeah, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Handing over to Afroza.
Thank you. And yeah, just I'm moving towards Miss Afroza Sharmin.
Hello, hi everyone who's listening. Thanks to both of you, and really honored to share this platform with Emiko, who's also, like you said, very great colleague, very good friend. Something about myself, I have also graduated from medical school in Bangladesh. I came here around 2018. I did a year of emergency ACCS training, which is emergency anesthetics, and then moved on to surgical training. And then I am an Oxford trainee and finished my ST3 and then came out of program to do research. I'm also in Imperial College, finished my first year of PhD. Currently starting on second year, which is a bit daunting, but exciting at the same time. My topic is in esophageal adenocarcinoma, and I'm looking into how glucose metabolism is altered in this cancer, and if there's any pathway for new drugs that we can target for this very lethal disease.
Nice. The topic itself sounds very fascinating. I agree. This is something great you are doing and achieving. So getting into the training and getting a training number in the UK itself is a great achievement. I'm not going to ask what made you choose surgery because as my second guest has mentioned that she did some training in kind of anesthesia and then she chose to be in general surgery. I'm not gonna question about that. What made you choose general surgery? Because I'm also trying to getting into the training of general surgery. I chose general surgery over medicine or gynae. I mean, you like it, that's why you do it. It's understandable. But getting out of the training just to be to do something more, something because I know there are many trainees. Everyone doesn't do the PhD. So my first question would be like, what made you to think of going for PhD, or like what was your I would say the motive or the idea of applying for PhD? Yeah, anyone can start, whoever wants to start.
I think one thing me and Afroza have in common is before our PhDs, we both did our masters. So the reason you'd get into doing a master's is because you want to know more about research, you're interested in being published. Um, I have a professional motivation and a personal motivation. I'll start with the professional one because I think that applies to everyone, which is professionally, when you get some time into academia, it's easier for you to understand how clinical practice works, how guidelines are made, how protocols and systems are established. It also helps you question other treatments which you don't believe in because you can analyze how, research will help you criticize other medical science, which is always helpful. The personal reason I have is because I think as physicians, we treat patients every day in, day out. You're going to be seeing lots of patients, treating them. But what you do in your research is something that will live far beyond you. So, this is the way that you can give back to to medical students, to scientists in future generations as well. And I think that was good motivation enough for me to want to at least I wouldn't go as far as being an expert in research, but at least be having a stepping stone to becoming an expert in research.
Right. How about you, Ms. Afroza Sharmin?
Thanks. I mean, Emiko's put it very eloquently. I mean, quite similar to what she's already mentioned. I did see when I entered my training, and especially when moving to the UK from Bangladesh, um, it is very research heavy everywhere, and it's very inspiring to see things that you have not seen so much of in medical school, which I think we are lacking in Bangladesh, to try and integrate this early on. And what I've realized is even medical students, they do a lot more research than we've ever been accustomed to understand, to be exposed to. So there was this very stark difference that I could very immediately see when I came to the UK. And it is quite inspiring that apart from the skills that you obviously gather when you are in surgical training, which I think is what most of us enjoy, gaining the technical skills, research is a completely different ball game, and it opens your mind. It gives you these tools to ask different questions. You know how to read papers more critically, and these are sets of extra tools that you don't get it in your training per se. And I thought research gave you that insight of a greater picture. I mean, everyone goes into research trying to solve the impossible. Not that that happens, not that it's always rainbows and you get the perfect results, but it is something that you have addition to your clinical practice that you can explore if you want to. Especially in the UK, you can develop as a scientist as well, apart from your clinical pathway. And I think having that option and having that in your cavalry is quite exciting. And that's what I want to perhaps relay through this podcast today, to invite people to look into this a bit more and just be open to it. I know we have all this pressure of publishing, but apart from that, it just gives you so many more tools to be a better physician, be more evidence-based, and even think critically yourself outside the box as well. So that I found very exciting.
Nice. Right. So as in my understanding, Miss Emiko Sultana did masters before applying for PhD, which you did not. So what's your understanding? Does it matter, or we can jump to, or I mean, we can bypass masters if we want to do PhD, or it's better to do PhD, masters, and then apply for PhD? What's your understanding, if you kindly say so?
So yeah, I did a master's as well before, and it is quite common here that medical students do like a bachelor's degree integrated with their MBBS itself. Um, there's no hard and fast rule that you have to do it. You can do a PhD without your master's, but PhD is a very, very big undertaking. It is the highest form of degree you will get in your subject of your choosing. So it is quite intense, and I think the commitment for PhD is quite longer as well. So if you're someone who is not sure if you want to do a PhD, something like a master's, a bachelor's degree, etc., in research or related fields could help, but it's not an absolute necessity. So it's really upon you.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if Emiko has something else to say.
Yeah, please, if you have some.
I think we're both biased because we've both done the masters, but
Yeah.
I know a few people who have gone straight for a PhD, and the worst thing that you can do is go into a commitment for 3 years, especially if you're in training because you've already told your deanery that you're taking time off, and then decide that research is not for you. So I think for most international medical graduates, I would probably recommend at least looking into a master's, if not a master's, maybe a postgraduate certificate or a postgraduate diploma, which is like 3 to 6 months, just to know if, thinking critically, writing papers, writing essays, even sticking to deadlines is something that you want to do. Because if you don't want to do it, you'll find these 3 years absolute like a nightmare. And, like these are things that I'm quite passionate about. And even then, sometimes we find the job frustrating. I'm not going to say it's all, fairies and dandelions where, you're doing your PhD and your entire life is great. It's sometimes you will feel the pressure. But I think we were both probably better accustomed to the pressure because we've already done something like a mini PhD when you're doing your master's. And as a local UK graduate, you probably don't need this push because you've done enough writing and you're used to this by the time you've done medical school. But I think especially like from anyone who's graduated from Bangladesh, I know this is for a DMC alumni, we don't do a lot of paper writing before we graduate. Most of our curriculum is based on memorizing topics, giving that back, examining patients, being able to structure that nicely, which is a very, very different field from academia. And it's a good taster. A master's is a good taster. Might I add, an expensive good taster to a PhD, but it's not mandatory. There are plenty of people who are doing it without one, and I think that's also fine. Yeah, I think it did help me though with trying to find a supervisor, trying to, kind of buff up your portfolio because Imperial, as you know, is quite a competitive institution. I think the year that me and Afroza applied, it was the best university in the world, ranked by the QS rankings or
Yeah.
something. So in order to get into that, you don't want to just say like, oh, I'm interested in research. You want to say that this is my CV, I've done research, this is what I've published. These are the kind of research questions I can formulate, and therefore I'm going to be an asset to your university, accept my application.
Yeah, so thank you. I was coming to that question laterwards, like what is needs to be taking in when we apply for it, but I will come back to the question again. So what I've understood from your discussion, the first thing to take home message is even if we think of doing PhD, it's very important to ask ourselves that are we prepared for it, or are we ready? Even if we want to do it, are we ready, or do we think, as you mentioned, it's going to be a long-term commitment? Are we ready to go for it or not? Is it going to be extra pressure, or we will be able to finish it or not? So it's very important you think about yourself and your commitment, whether you're going to complete it or not, and then get into the field of trying to apply for PhD. So you are quite when you applied for the PhD, you were quite early in the training, specialty training, yeah. But according to you, is it when is the appropriate time if you want to go for academia or want to apply for PhD? Is it in the beginning of the ST3? Because I know someone who have completed their training. He was post-CCT fellow, and now I think doing his PhD in your college already. So, is there any best time, or is it the sooner the better, or you can do any time? It doesn't matter. It's just a matter how you gonna cope or how you are committed to your PhD. If you kindly say about this appropriate time of thinking of applying for PhD. Thanks.
Think it's quite hard to say there's a right time for it. And the beauty of the UK is that you can do it anytime in your training. There are people who do an intercalated PhD alongside their medical degree. So by the time they're a foundation doctorate, they already have a PhD. So there's pros and cons. You just have to decide which fits with your situation the best. The benefits of doing it early on is that, it's a 3-year commitment, you're done with it, and then you can focus on your clinical training for the rest of the time. So a lot of people do it, and it does add points to your application. So I know lots of people who do it between SHO training and registrar training, so ST2 and 3, so that you could kind of make your ST3 application stronger. Some people do it even before that to make your, your ST1 application stronger. Um, the advantage of that is obviously, your but this is a personal opinion. I think most academic degrees are better done when you're younger, because you're more inclined to sit down at home, write your papers, etc. When you're, more advanced in your career, you want to go out and about, you want to be, doing things for patients, making bigger strides. So the advantage of doing it early is that you're more accustomed to that lifestyle. It's easier. PhD lifestyle will have a pay cut as well, so you're more likely to be able to adjust to that when you're early on in your career. The advantage of doing it in the middle of your career, like me and Afroza, is that you have enough clinical experience to add that value to your projects. We have, even in our firm, we have some PhD students who are very early in their career, and usually the problem they have is they're extremely guided by their supervisors because they don't have the clinical experience. Whereas people like me and Afroza can probably add a little bit more, as in, oh, I've seen this in clinic, I've seen this in theatre, what do you think? So that's one of the major advantages. The other thing is that with most of the NHS, like if you're doing a PhD that's funded by your university hospital, then you're in a better position to get that kind of a job when you're mid-training than when you're very early on in training. I can't comment much on doing it at the later stages of your training because it's something that, I would never
Oh,
experience.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
I think the advantage of that is obviously, you're done with your training. You can focus a little bit maybe on, some research that'll help you get an academic role. It might help you spend some more time away from clinical practice, more time with your family, which might be helpful. But also, like, at that point, you've seen all of the training bits. So maybe as a researcher, you can contribute the most.
Right. Okay, yeah, I agree. Both has pros and cons. How about you, Miss Afroza Sharmin? What do you think? What would be the appropriate time to apply for it?
No, I quite agree with what Emiko has said so far. It's based on your personal circumstances, your perspective. Of course, I can't comment on the late PhDs. I'm sure their perspective would be very interesting to hear as well. But for me, I think apart from everything that Emiko said, which I greatly agree with, having some more clinical insight, being more secure in what you want to research, and what you can bring to the table, and what do you want to study compared to doing it early on. There are a lot of, like Emiko's mentioned already, they've got medical students who are intercalating PhD during their MBBS. So I know some of them who've done a bachelor's degree during their medical school, and moved on to PhD. I don't know if that's a very imperial thing, but that's very common here for medical students to do. So by the time they even go to clinical practice, they already have multiple research degrees under their belt. But for people, because I think we're talking to a community from Bangladesh, those who come from another country without these experiences. The other thing that can contribute to these decisions is your visa status as well. So initially, when I started my co-training, I knew I wanted to do research. I had a run-through number, so I could take time off at any point in my training. But I did have to wait until my visa status is more secured, because you do have to take time out of training. And I thought during that time, if I wanted to do research, master's was the best thing that I could do while I was in training, and I did it part-time, and I'm sure Emiko did it as well. So a lot of that factored into all the decisions that has come about to where I am today. So that is one thing to think about when you are thinking avenues about research. Secondly, I thought it was appropriate in my stage. I'm not too advanced in my career, and I still have things that I want to decide. Maybe I want to do cancer stuff, maybe I don't. And I thought this was a time to explore that a bit more. And in terms of research, it just gives you more insight. And gives you a bit time to think about your goals as well. So for me personally, I think this was a great time to do it. As you progress in your career, like Emiko said, you would want to be doing more, giving more time to theaters, trying to do these case that you want to build up your skills in. So so that's why I thought this was the best time to do it. And besides that, more when you go towards the end of your career, you do have more bigger exams to finish as well.
I
And I
agree.
thought pushing PhD during that time would be a lot of clash and be difficult to manage as well. Yeah.
Okay, so well, I know it takes time to think of the topic of the PhD and then set a plan and then looking for the supervisor, looking for things, and it's not like you apply for it, you get it, and you start doing it. So when you started planning for like I'm gonna do the PhD, so I need to do a plan. I need to study a bit about what I'm gonna do or what I want to do research on. So what would be the ideal suppose let's say you are doing early time a PhD. If I say that if I get into the training and I want to do PhD at the same time like ST3 or ST4 or ST5 level, from when should I start preparing or looking for the topic or looking for the supervisor? Like when should I start applying for it or taking preparation?
It varies for everyone, as in you could, so I finished my master's in September, and then I started looking into PhD programs like I think quite early on, as in a month or so afterwards. Um, it's one of my registrars, well, when I was an SHO, she was a registrar who's actually helped me with my contacts to know that there was a vacancy for Imperial. One of the most important things she said is like you wait for serendipitous incidences. Essentially, you speak to someone who speaks to someone who knows someone who has a project, and somehow that's perfect for you. So I think the best, if you want to get into a PhD program, the best thing to do is start telling people who are also in academia or who's also done research degrees in the area, in the specialty and in the region that you want to get your degree, and start talking about it. And eventually you will probably come across someone, because the academia field is quite well knitted. You'll find someone who knows someone who will be able to offer you that project. You probably don't have to think too hard about exactly what project you're going to do, because this will be largely driven by your supervisor. But you need to think about, which specialty, for example,
Right.
I want to do colorectal surgery. I
Mhm.
would be looking at, for example, a pediatric surgery PhD, or I won't be speaking to a pediatric surgeon consultant for my research. You'd speak to someone in your specialty, but also remember which institution you want to go into as well, which what kind of advantages, disadvantages they give you, etc. I was a West Midlands trainee, so it would have made a lot more sense for me to do my PhD from Birmingham, which is where our largest hospital was. I did a
Mhm.
master's from Oxford, so it made a lot of sense for me to apply to a to a PhD program in Oxford, going, traveling on from the from the master's. But the reason I didn't choose any of those were because, based on my life circumstances, the topics that I wanted, the supervisors that I wanted,
Mhm.
all of my requests were answered by Imperial. Whereas Birmingham wasn't able to provide that, Oxford wasn't suitable for exactly what I was looking for. They're
Right. Okay.
fantastic institutions. I'm sure there would be perfect first, for the students who are already there. So you need to look at your own personal circumstances and then kind of drive yourself towards what aligns with your topic of interest, with your lifestyle, with what you want.
So here again, the take-home message is again to look for a suitable place which will meet your topic or criteria or specialty you want to do, and of course creating the link with the people who are already in academic part. The other thing I just out of curiosity, because you said you are training in West Midland and you did your masters in Oxford, and you are kind of did it part time. So
Yes.
how did you apply for the masters in Oxford? So
So
advertised it or you just
it was a
email them?
It was a program that, so all master's applications are, unlike a PhD, are available to everyone in the world online. They have an application window, for example, I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was sometime in the winter, like if you submit
Right.
your application by January, everyone will be considered. So I
Right.
was looking
Okay.
at topics that I wanted. It's just a simple Google search, and I saw that there was that program in surgical science and practice that I was interested in, clicked on the link, applied. Um, and that's about it. It wasn't unlike the PhD where you need to be very specific about who you're going to, which institution you're going for, which supervisor you're going to go for, and what topic they're going to give you. A master's is a generic course that everyone will do the same thing, whoever gets enrolled in that master's. So that was what helped. I mean, it wasn't a complex process to apply for it. It was just
Uh,
an
right.
online.
So is it you apply and then you get selected, or there needs to be something special or unique in your CV to get selected for the masters?
For the masters, I mean, Oxford is obviously very competitive. You need to,
Yeah.
you need to show that you have the grades, that you have the skills in the interview. I'm not sure if they look too much into your CV, but you do need to, it was in surgical science, so you do need to make sure that you are in some field related to surgery or that you would benefit from.
Right. Okay. Sure.
I think most master's programs in the UK are quite competitive. They probably have about, hundreds, if not thousands of applications, and each class would only accept maybe 20 to 30 people based on
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
doing it in. So you do have to go through that gruesome process of, letters of recommendation, statement of purposes, all of this stuff. But it,
And and is it funded, like most of the masters funded by your self-funded or sometimes the institute? Like what applied for you?
I think you can get partial funding, but mine was self-funded.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No matter, I talk to most of the people who have done masters, apart from couple of them, was self-funded. I just wanted to get an idea. Moving towards Miss Afroza Sharmin, if you, because I've heard a bit, we have heard a bit about selecting topic or like how should we start preparing. But if you tell us how the funding and when you get into the PhD, how the funding works or how it should be. Is it something we should arrange it beforehand, or it's when you get selected, it's just how this thing, the economic part works for if you want to do a PhD?
Right. So a lot of it depends on where you're doing your PhD and what kind of PhD you're doing. Um, I think Emiko and I got lucky into the place we wanted to do it and the team we wanted to do it with, which is one of the factors that you need to think about. But there are PhDs that are so we do a clinical research fellow job
Mhm.
where we do some clinical time for the hospital who basically funds our salary, and then we have time for our
Right. Okay.
academic time. But there are PhDs where you have a completely funded PhD. Maybe your PI, who's a principal investigator, has a funded PhD for a PhD
Mm.
student, and in that case, you are completely focusing your time on academia and your research. There are other circumstances where even if you do a clinical job like we are doing with a research element, you can apply for external funding pots. They're extremely competitive, but
Right.
there is avenue where you can apply to different research organizations, present your findings, your research topic, what your hypothesis is, etc. But this is extremely competitive and quite prestigious as well. So if anyone wants to do that, I'll encourage you to do that because it's a big stamp on your CV if you can get funding by yourself from an external source. But yeah, the opportunities are there. It just depends on the timing and what works out best for you. So these are the options that I know of.
So when, to start with, we look for the clinical research. Let's say that we don't, because it's extremely competitive, we don't get the funding. Like we have to do the way you are doing. So we look for the clinical research fellow job first, and then go for the look. There is a post. I have the quality. I've done some research. I want to do PhD, and this, can I apply for the post? Or you go for the, I want to do PhD. These are my research experience, and I think I would be suitable, and then they take you as a PhD student and they put you into that post. How does that work, or is it something simultaneously happen?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Did you mean?
So you initially apply for the clinical research fellow job first, and then
Oh,
you
I see.
say
I
the,
see, I see, I see.
yeah.
No, so the way this job is designed is it is a job for you to get a PhD. So it is an academic. So our contracts are with Imperial College and it's
Mm-hmm.
not with the hospital. So it is a PhD contract, and we entered it to get a PhD from this college. The clinical research fellow is like for this institute at least, it is an agreement with Imperial College and the Health
Right.
Trust
Okay.
that we will give a certain amount of clinical hours so that they can fund our salary, which is what you will not have to do if you can get external funding, where they will pay you for your complete basic salary of your level. So if you're a registrar, you'll get registrar level salary.
Mhm.
If you're an SHO, you'll get SHO level salary, etc. And they will fund you for anything else you might need for research. But again, you need to put that in a very, very succinct proposal. You need to go through an extensive interview if you are selected. And after that, if you are successful, then you'll get a huge pot of money, which again goes through the it doesn't directly come to you, it goes through
So
certain
yeah.
streams. But yeah, then they pay your entire salary and give you stipends for your research, etc.
And does that put extra pressure because the people who have already funded, they just focus on their research, but you
Yeah.
want along with the PhD or the research, you have to do clinical shifts. I mean, kind of you have to do job and then you have to do research. Do you think it is something a bit challenging, or is it a bit harder than just to focus on the research? Do you find it difficult?
So I think at least so far, I thought this was a good balance, because I never thought I could do something that takes me completely away from clinical practice, because we are physicians and we need to have some
Right,
clinical
exactly.
time. So I thought that was a good transition. But in terms of challenging and research time, yes, you do have to give time for the clinical time in terms of your on calls, which I've just finished one,
Yes.
and then some clinics here and there. So it does take time out of research compared to someone who's just focusing on research, and that I won't lie, it does add pressure sometimes when you have deadlines and you have clinical on calls, and then you're trying to sort out your shifts like you do. So it does add a bit of stress in that term, but it has worked out so far. I wouldn't complain if someone gave me funding and I didn't have to do this for some time. I wouldn't complain, but that's what we are. And like I said, different PhDs are different. It just what I think a lot of luck is also involved. A lot of how many people you know, how a lot of it goes in networking, a lot of it is
Sure.
timing. There's a lot of factors that comes
I
into when
know,
you
I
select a
know.
PhD. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But what how you feel, Miss Emiko Sultana? What's your understanding? Do you think it's a bit challenging and you get bit pressure when you're doing both?
Like Afroza, I love my clinical practice. I love seeing patients. I also really like the hospital that we're working in. Imperial is it's a very like um, it provides a work environment where they know you're a PhD student, because this program has been going on for a few years. They know when you're a PhD student, you know, the responsibilities you hold, etc. And I think because obviously the main goal for both me and Afroza is to CCT and become a general surgical consultant. The academia part is fantastic, but you know, you do want to know, you want to keep in touch with, you know, like the
Sure, I
operating
completely agree.
clinics.
Yes, I completely agree.
So,
Um,
yeah.
so thank you. Anything someone wanted to say? I think I have interrupted
No, no,
someone.
don't worry.
No, okay. All right. Yeah. So once you are into this, it eventually happens, life goes on and you kind of get accustomed to it, but even before starting the training and thinking these things at a whole, it feels a lot, but eventually I think the people who will be listening to us will understand step by step. If you want to do get into the general surgery or become a general surgery consultant at some point, get into the training. If you are interested in PhD or academic part, start thinking of it, create link, network, and apply for it. If you are not committed that much, then start with the PG cert, as you said, or the masters, and see how you feel, and then go for the PhD. So, or I think I am already completed my queries, and the last thing I want to ask that, because the again I would like to thank Dr. Atikur Rahman, just because I know we are talking about gender equality, or like kind of equality in the men and women. Obviously, for a woman or lady, it's a bit challenging to go with the surgery, balancing family, and then doing PhD on top. Um, so it's very good to see both ladies here. So I would like to say, what are the challenges so far? Like not only the PhD, just thinking of general surgery. I know everything in medical science is not easy. Getting into the training, even in the medical, I mean the medical part, medicine part is also tough. But surgery is kind of very different. I would say very hard in compared to medicine. So, what are the challenges so far as a female surgeon you have faced, and how did you tackle it and reached to this level? If you share the journey, it would be really appreciated, and how you balance the timing and everything.
I think in academia, there's less emphasis on genders compared to clinical practice, because in academia, your value is judged by what you put on paper, what you publish, etc. It doesn't have much to do with the tone of your voice or what, whether you're a man or a woman, etc. Or in fact, it doesn't even matter whether you are, Caucasian, Asian, it doesn't really matter. So I think academia is quite a safe spot in that case where, you wouldn't really be judged on anything other than what you're publishing or how you're analyzing, you know, data, etc. So but clinical practice, obviously there is a bit of a discrepancy between how men are treated and how women are treated. But um, I'm really proud to say that this is probably a lot less now than it was even like 5, 10 years ago.
Right.
Past. We're quite, we have my supervisor is, for example, a female colorectal surgeon. We have quite a few other female surgeons in our field. So it's there's less of that situation where you're like the only female in the room. So I'm sure the gender biases still exist, but the good news is it's coming down. And I think this was the first year that the GMC has more female doctors than male doctors. So,
Good. All right, good to know. How about you? How do you feel, Miss Afroza Sharmin? Because I know I have worked both in colorectal and in upper GI. In colorectal, I was lucky to see some of the female surgeons, but when it comes to upper GI, I didn't. So I worked in Coventry, I worked in Hull, and I worked as a SHO in Hull, and then I worked as a registrar in Coventry, and then I'm in Greater Yarmouth again here. I haven't seen much of a lady upper GI surgeon. So how do you feel?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, it's quite an important topic to talk about these things. Um, in terms of seeing female surgeons, I think the conversation is changing. By the time we are consultants, I'm hoping that this disparity will be quite narrow, if not gone, which I think is very helpful to think about that. But in terms of having female surgeons, we are seeing people coming around who we can look up to. There are not quite a lot of them yet, but there is this shift, as Emiko is saying, and we do have a lot of female trainees now, and all our deaneries and all the conferences you go to, everyone does champion this idea of equity more than anything, and diversity, etc. Luckily, in terms of either academia or my training, I've not experienced something in terms of either racial bias or gender bias, etc., at least directed where I've worked or where I've seen. But this is something that people do experience, and particularly in surgery, where you are quite dependent on your trainers and
Sure.
the perspective that your trainers have of you, and your reputation, etc. Um, I wouldn't say that it has it, it has completely changed over the last 5 to 10 years, but yes, it is improving, and we have to be the drivers of that shift as well.
Sure.
So as long as you think, I feel like I strongly believe, as long as you think you belong here and you will take the space that you think you deserve, I don't think there's anyone who can tell you otherwise. So you do have to have that internal belief that you belong here and this is what I want to do, and you have to have a very clear pathway in your mind and just strive for it. I think that's the main goal here. Just keep going. step by step, take it one at a time,
Yeah.
and everything will fall in place.
Right. Thank you. And my kind of last question is, I know you both are into the training, run through training, and then you applied for the PhD. Have you come across anyone who is not in UK training program in general surgery, but is doing PhD? Is it possible? Is it something can be done or can be applied, or you have to be in training?
We have one person in the firm who's very new to the UK. He's not from Bangladesh, but from another South Asian country where I think after 1 year in the UK, after a trust grade job, they were able to get this number. There's pros and cons to it. I think one of the pros is that, obviously, instead of searching for a job, you have these 3 years where you're doing your research, and then by the end of it, you probably have a stronger portfolio to apply for ST3 numbers or whatever. But the cons would definitely be that when you have an academic profile, it makes your clinical profile unfortunately a bit weaker, because the last 3 years of your life isn't dedicated to making you a better operator. It's making you a better publisher, and which is why I think doing it mid-training is quite a safe spot,
Yes.
because you know that you have a job that you can go back to, and you know that even if you do have a bit of, obviously in the last when we were in training, you'd be operating at least 2-3 days a week, whereas from now you probably only do at max once a week or once every 2 weeks if you are doing a clinical PhD. So when we go back to training, we do have a deanery who will look after us, who would say, okay, I know you've been away from training. Here, I'm going to help you for the first couple of months to help you get back on your feet. If you're doing it straight from, for example, you've come from Bangladesh, you've just started a PhD, and then now you want to apply for clinical training, you don't really have that same support, and that might make it a bit challenging. I'm not saying it's impossible, but
And for
these
school
are
also.
there's things to think about as well.
Right. Okay. So I think I'm done with the questions I had in my mind. It's quite like eye-opening session, I'd say. So many things to know, so many things to think of even before trying to achieve it. It's just not the tick box of I want to do PhD to improve my CV, or it's something needed in the future when I apply for the consultant jobs. It's more thinking of will I be even able to carry this out or complete this. And so thank you so much, both of you. But just at the end, if you want to say something for the people who will be listening to us, who might be interested in doing PhD or trying to build their career in the surgery, if you kindly say something for them, would be highly appreciated.
Oh, well, thank you everyone for tuning in who's been here for the podcast. But what I would just give a take-home message would be just know yourself, and just know what works for you. What someone else does doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you. So have your goals written out, and then you just take it one step at a time. See what your priorities are. I know a lot of people have their own families to think about, financial issues, location issues, etc. So all this, the training and PhD has to fit into your life and what your overall goal is. There's always a way. Nothing is impossible. So it's just being persistent and persevere through it. And good luck.
Thank you. How about you, Miss Emiko, Sultana?
Thank you, Nusrat, and especially for making this platform to allow, other medical students and graduates from Bangladesh to have a listen to our opinions. And it was an honor speaking to you, Nusrat, and Afroza. I think one of the key messages I would have is just think about what your priorities are. Don't ever get into research or anything else in that matter because someone else has done it or you think you have to do it. There is other than residency, there is nothing you have to do in order to become a consultant. You should do it when you want to, when it aligns with your life, and when you think that you can, it will make you a happier, more rounded physician. And if this is what you want to do and it's something that you're passionate about, then by all means go for it. And we're happy for you to reach out to us for any info.
Right. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to share the platform with you, to Boss Ladies, and all the best. Remember me. So it's kind of networking you've mentioned. It's kind of the starting of my networking with you. Hopefully, we will be in touch. And once again, thank you, Dr. Atik, for arranging the session. I think we have come to an end of the session. If you want to add something, I would ask you to add, or otherwise we're gonna finish the session.
No,
Dr.
thank you all for your time, and thanks Atik and Nusrat for this wonderful podcast.
All right then. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.